Hello everyone, welcome back to Lucky Loaders 15, and in this video we're going to be previewing day 2 of Glorious Goodwood. Before we get into that, I just want to quickly reflect on how day 1 went. Well, it was pretty shocking, to be honest with you. We didn't do too good, I'm afraid. It was only in the last race that we emerged with any credit. We had a second place. It was a good each way. I tipped it up last night at around about 14 to 1. It was quite well supported for Jim Boyle, but in the end it was moved swiftly for William Haggis that came past our selection in the dying strides, and in the end we could only muster second. Apart from that, I think we maybe had one or two hard luck stories, but our selections just weren't good enough on the day, and that's how racing goes. However, on day 2 of the Galway Festival, we've had another fairly good day. We had 2 winners which were quite nice. One drifted out to 5 to 1, and the other one was Hermosa, which was round about an even money shot and then went to 11 to 8. So it wasn't too bad there, and we also had a fair each way there as well. So Galway's been better than Goodwood so far, but we've only had one day of Goodwood. Also as well, I was at Glorious Goodwood today with BBC Radio 5 Live alongside the commentator John Hunt. Had a really good day. He showed me the ropes, got to have a go, a little bit of commentary, and it was really good fun, and I'll definitely learn from that experience going forward. Also as well, we will be back at Glorious Goodwood again this week on Thursday, but I will be there with BBC Radio Sussex for Ladies Day as their pundit, so really looking forward to that. Was there with them last year, and I can't wait to go back again on Thursday. But there's definitely a good card on day 2 of Glorious Goodwood, and we'll give you a selection for every race, and hopefully we can have a lot of a better day tomorrow. We start off in the 150 tomorrow with the marathon race, which is over 2.5 miles. I quite like a horse here called Pilatia. It's around about 8 to 1 bookmakers at the moment, trained by Sir Mark Prescott. Luke Morris is booked for the ride. This horse has been doing pretty well since it's been going over the longer trips. It's won over 2 miles 3 times, I should say, so it's got a fairly good record over the longer trips. Also as well, if you look at its pedigree, it's related to some decent stayers, and I think this horse can go really well tomorrow. Sir Mark Prescott's horses have been running really well, and they're operating over a 30% strike rate at the moment. They've had quite a few quiet patches in recent years, but Sir Mark's horses are really flying at the moment, and it's definitely worth following them. This horse won at Chester last time in really convincing style, beating a fair horse of Andrew Balding's. I think this has probably been a target for it for the last few weeks, and I could definitely see this one going really well tomorrow and hopefully giving us our first win of Glorious Goodwood. We then go to the 225 with a horse here called Polish. It's round about 9 to 1, best odds for bookmakers at the moment, trained by Roger Charlton, and Andrea Azani is booked for the ride. Now you might remember this one a couple of starts ago when I went to Salisbury races. Something I often do, go to the races and give you tips and insights throughout the day. We were at Salisbury when this one bolted up. It was my nap and best bet of the day. It was 5 to 1 before the race meeting even started, and then on course it drifted out to 10 to 1. I still was sticking with it, and it absolutely bolted up, beating a fair horse of Andrew Balding's called King Lud. That form was recently boosted by King Lud running another good race. However, this horse Polish, he went to Doncaster last time out, and he was a couple of lengths behind a horse called Bombix of James Fanshaw's. I don't think that was a bad run that day, but I think it wasn't suited by it being in such a small field. But I think tomorrow this could definitely be up its street. I think it's definitely well handicapped off a mark of 89. It's got some fairly decent performers in its pedigree, and I'm definitely going to back this one tomorrow. One of my strongest fancies of the day, and I thought 9 to 1 was a cracking each way bet. Staying with kind of these prices at the moment, but I think they're slightly overpriced. In the 3 o'clock, I like a horse in the Group 3 called Street Parade. Now this one is around about a 10 to 1 shot bookmakers at the moment. I've managed to get that Sky bet, trained by Stuart Williams, and Oisin Murphy's booked for the ride, who's been riding very well of late. This horse won at Chepstow last time out by 8 lengths. I was there that day, and even though it didn't beat very much, it did it really impressively, and I was there with the Silk Series, and this one really caught my eye, and I was interested to see where it goes next. It's pitched in here. Before that, it won at Lingfield, and it beat a horse of James Tate's called Implicit. That horse has since gone on to win twice in quick succession, so that form's been boosted, and I thought this horse maybe is a little bit overpriced in the market, and I could definitely see this one making the frame. It's raced really impressively so far, and I'm expecting a good run from from this horse tomorrow. We then go to the 3:35, and I'm going to be against the 2 market favourites, which are the 3-year-olds, who, to be fair, do get the weight allowance. I'm going to be taking on Expert Eye and Without Parole with Beat the Bank. Now this horse has been in my radar for this race for quite some time. Won over the course and distance last year, so that's no worry there. Was slightly unlucky in the Queen Anne at Royal Ascot, but then went and won the Group 2 Fred Cowley last time out, just getting up at Ascot. I don't think Ascot is a track it particularly likes. I think it's better at more traditional tracks, maybe with a curve, and I could definitely see this one going really well tomorrow. I thought 6-1, that's a fair each way price, trained by Andrew Boulding, who had the winner of this race last year. You might remember the shock win, Here Comes When. Jim Crowley's booked for the ride, and I could definitely see this one running another good race tomorrow. Also as well, there was a bit of rain over the last couple of days at Goodwood, which made probably the ground a little bit slower than it's normally been. It's been described as good, and I definitely think this will play to Beat the Bank strengths. I don't really think he's suited on really firm ground, which he did get last time out, so I think that little bit of moisture that has got into the ground will definitely suit Beat the Bank, and I'm backing him to win the Sussex Stakes tomorrow in the 3:35. We then go to the 4:10, which is pretty much just throw a dart at a dartboard and see what it lands on, because anything could win this race. But the one I'm going to go for here is Parliament House. 10-1 bookmakers at the moment, trained by Mark Johnston. James Doyle was getting the leg up. Now this stable won this race last year with Threading, that you might remember went on to finish behind Alpha Centauri at Royal Ascot, and Threading as well has been a very good progressive horse for Mark Johnston, a nice young horse. And if it's anything like this horse, Parliament House, like Threading, it should go well in this race. It's related to 8 winners immediately from its siblings. It's got a really classy pedigree, and I think this one could give you a fair run for your money tomorrow if you wanted to have a bet in it, and that would be my selection. We then go to the 4:45, and I like a horse here called Billesdon Bess. Around about 9-1 bookmakers at the moment, trained by Richard Hannon. Holly Doyle booked for the ride. I thought this was an interesting contender. Been running in group and listed races where it's probably not quite up to that standard. Going into a Class 2 handicap tomorrow, but it is going to carry top weight. Now that might be a bit of a concern, but I think the drop back to a mile will definitely suit it. It's been running slightly over further recently. I thought the drop down to a mile would be good. Also as well, it won over the course and distance last year, and that was on soft ground, and I think maybe it did need a little bit of cut in the ground in its last couple of runs, but like I said earlier, the moisture that's maybe got into the ground in the last few days will definitely help Billesdon Bess, and if it goes towards the front, I can see it maybe having too much for the rest, and maybe could sneak at the victory at a fairly handy price. We then go to the last race, the 5:55. I think this is probably the most trickiest race on the card tomorrow. I found it really hard to have a fancy, but if you had to pin me down, I would go for Masham Star. Around about 14-1 bookmakers at the moment, trained by Mark Johnston, and PJ McDonald is booked for the ride. This horse is probably maybe a bit more of an all-weather specialist, but has won recently on the turf at Windsor a couple of months ago, so it's not a bad turf horse, and I thought it was pretty well handicapped on the turf, and if it can run anywhere near that level, I thought it had a really decent chance. Mark Johnston does really well at Goodwood. It's one of his best tracks. He often brings a lot of horses down from his northern base, and I thought 14-1 with some bookmakers paying even 6 places, and no sky better. I thought Masham Star could maybe give you a run for his money. He's drawn towards the inside. If you can get a good lead early, he might have too much for those up top. So for me, Masham Star it is in the last race of 5:55. So they're the tips for day 2 of Glorious Goodwood. Hopefully we can have a better day tomorrow. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel here at LuckyLoads15 if you haven't done so already. You can also follow me on Twitter, which my handle is at LuckyLoaders15. So yeah, that's all I got to say really. Please gamble responsibly. Hopefully you can have some winners tomorrow, and we'll be seeing you soon.